You think your favourite artist takes too long to release new music? Well, try waiting 17 years. Gospel have gone 17 years without releasing an album. Not that I had to wait 17 years for this album, because when I was 10 years old, I had no idea who Gospel were. But years later, I've discovered this band and known them to be one of the best post-hardcore groups of the 2000s, even with only one album. Yes, only one album. And they've made people wait 17 years for another, which is insane. And you would think the quality drop or quality difference would be noticeable with that kind of gap in releasing music. Well, think again, because actually this is just as if they never stopped making music. This is like they released an album a few years ago and then they've dropped a sophomore release a few years later, because the quality difference is barely noticeable. This is fantastic. They've changed things up ever so slightly to make these two albums sound distinct from one another, and I think this time around there isn't as much intensity all the way through from start to finish. There are some moments where the vocals take a bit of a break. There's a bit more of a command to the singer's voice at times, and it's not like the whole way through you're just getting The guitar tone throughout on this album is excellent. There's even some moments that feel a bit more atmospheric in a sort of Deftones kind of way. Not that this album is reminiscent of Deftones the whole way through, but I do feel like there are points where the album takes a bit more of that atmospheric approach. But then you do have the brittleness of the guitars that come through, the kind of anger screaming through in the guitars on the first track, which again is just indicative of what this band is fantastic at doing. Pairing that with the really eerie church organ sounds as well, it's a great opener. With the really intense vocal delivery, yeah man, this is exactly what you want from a screamo post-hardcore metal album. The first track is perfect really for what it's setting out to achieve. I think Deerghost is excellent as well. Some really interesting guitar playing going on here. This track right here is up there with one of their best songs ever, I would say. I think it's that good. You've got the manic, intense, bizarre vocals on White Spaces, a track that just feels like you're being slapped in the face with anxiety from start to finish. It's that kind of bizarre and just monstrous with how he's singing. A track like Tango actually reminded me of a band like Daughters, with how just creepy and eerie the vocals are, and just absolutely insane they sound, as if a man is just screaming into the void. It kind of borders on that kind of level, and I do wonder if there has been some sort of influence from a band like Daughters, because obviously recently over the past few years they have had a pretty well-received album, and of course it's been that long since Gospel made music that a band like Daughters has kind of come and even surpassed bands like Gospel in terms of popularity, you could even say. So it kind of makes you wonder if they have taken some kind of influence from them. It would definitely make sense. The influencer becomes the influencee, because there's no denying that even the first Gospel album would have had an influence on a band like Daughters, and then it's just kind of come full circle. Or even other bands out there too. It's not just like there's one band that you can point to. I'm pretty sure Gospel would be cited as an influence by so many bands. That's how good they were with just that one album. I love the track Tango though, because it starts out as that really mad, manic, intense moment, and then it just develops into something way more expressive, and there's just a bit more of like a creative freedom kind of being sparked through with how the track just kind of goes off on a tangent and does its own thing with the guitars, the drums. It's just like one huge solo by the end of it. It really sounds great, and I just like how they're just sort of, I don't know, just jamming out, just doing their own thing. Warm Bed is another moment on this album that is fantastic. It closes out the album really well. It intensifies like crazy, and by the end of this track, goddamn, it just is full on overload. The refrain's pretty catchy as well, where he keeps saying, well, he takes and he takes. I feel like that part of the track is really good, because a lot of this album can just be kind of one intensified explosion, but this track just kind of has segments to it that are pretty distinct from one another, which I like. So yeah, not much else to say from there, really. I think this is just a fantastic album, and to have such a gap between releases and to still maintain the quality, that's got to be an achievement on its own right. Like, seriously, it is just too good to be true that they've come through with an album that sounds this good so late in their career after the massive gap. I mean, I don't know much history or background as to why they haven't released any music or whatever. I don't know much about that. But I just know that, yes, it's a rarity for me to talk about metal music on this channel, but when I do it for a reason. And I just think this album right here, man, is like up there with one of the better metal albums I've heard in quite some time. This band, it deserves all it gets in terms of success, and I hope they continue to put out more music and not make people wait that long, because if it's 8 out of 10 quality every goddamn time, then yes, that is gonna be good enough for me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you enjoyed this album. If you have heard it, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't heard it though, would also love to see what you think about it, and if you agree with me or disagree, that would be fantastic to find out why. Have a good day, subscribe if you haven't already, and goodbye.